Welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of my lime fragrances. I did one just a minute ago. That was Eau de Gaga, which is a kind of cheap lime. And this is a kind of not expensive, super hype expensive lime, but it's pricier lime. But it has a lot more to tell than Eau de Gaga. So yeah, this one is Batucada by L'artisan Parfumeur. Alright, so apart from having the greatest name of any perfume, like Batucada, just it sounds kind of like what it's supposed to represent. So Batucada is like this, it's meant to be like Brazilian samba, kind of Brazilian beach parties, Brazilian kind of things, basically. And I guess, you know, when you sort of think of Brazil, you think of festivals and I mean, it might be a bit stereotypical, but you tend to think of kind of street festivals, parties, beach festivals, beach parties. And, you know, they're kind of samba and the drums and all the rest of it. So you got Batucada, you know, it sounds like that. In fact, I can rarely kind of, whenever I think of this fragrance or whenever I put it on, I always get that kind of like Batucada. It instantly just sticks in my head and drives me mad for the rest of the day, which is the biggest downside of this fragrance. So let's talk about the rest of the fragrance and the actual scent of it, right? So the notes are, in Batucada, on the top we have lime, mint and sugar. In the middle we have lang lang and tiare flower, which is basically gardenia. It's a Tahitian gardenia, and it's also known as like I think like frangipani or frangipani. I don't know how you say it, but that flower. If you think that sounds obscure, we'll come to it, but you definitely will know it. And it also is has like in the base has coconut, aquatic notes, and salt. There's more to it going on than those notes as well. There's definitely a few more notes in here that are not listed. But say we'll come to that, especially in the dry down. You're gonna get a bit more than that. So Batucada, it's quite interesting fragrance. It's definitely not linear. It's got a narrative. It's got a story to tell, and it progresses really, really smoothly and nicely through that narrative. So we'll give it a spray, and we'll talk about the opening. Now I've actually got the dry down of it on this wrist because I was wearing it today, but I can't separate them because I've got Eau de Gaga on this wrist now, so I'm gonna just bang this over the dry down, and or you know, maybe a little bit further along from the dry down, so I can kind of try and keep that dry down there. So when it opens in contrast to Eau de Gaga. The lime in this is not nuclear. It's not neon. It's not this kind of neon lime. It's very like a green lime, feels quite natural. It's quite understated actually, given that it's quite a strong note in this perfume, but feels quite understated. You also get a hint of spearmint, which is quite strange with that lime, and that's about it. So in the opening you get this kind of spearmint and lime, and with the spearmint you also get that kind of the way it kind of mixes with the citrus, you get this slight sort of alcohol kind of vibe to it. It's supposedly representing some Brazilian drink. I don't know, but I don't really feel like it's boozy, to be honest. I don't really feel like it's like alcoholic and kind of boozy to me. It doesn't have those kind of mojito vibes too much. I feel like you can read that into it if you want to, but for me it feels a bit greener than that, and I feel like it's more like the lime is there, and then the kind of mint, and it's just offering like a kind of fresh greenery to it. But it's a really interesting mix, like lime and spearmint. That's a really interesting fresh mix, and it instantly kind of kicks this perfume off in a direction that you want it to be going in really in the summer. It's fresh and it's kind of invigorating. Now after about a few minutes, sort of gently coming out now, but not too much, you start getting this sugar. And it definitely gets quite sweet and starts feeling a little bit like almost this sherbet, you know, almost like lime sherbet or something, and you get this kind of sugary kind of vibe to it, and it could go a little bit sweet, but it doesn't, and that's what I really like about this fragrance, is it balances itself really, really well. So say it does get in danger of like the sugar comes out, and the sugar's starting to come out, and you're starting to feel like, well, this could go in a sort of wrong direction, pretty sharpish, but it doesn't. It restrains itself, and it never gets like too sweet. It's always remains kind of light and fresh rather than kind of sweet and cloying and sugary and sort of syrupy. It doesn't get anywhere near those notes. It stays kind of head above the water, keeping itself light. The sugar just kind of gives it a nice kind of sweet edge, and it doesn't last, which, depending on how you feel about it, that could be a good or a bad thing. For me, I actually quite like the fact that it doesn't last, because I don't mind the sugar, but it's not my favourite part in this fragrance, and I actually like what it transitions into, which is really interesting. And now I kind of about like how this fragrance moves, because it definitely has a narrative, and it's definitely got a story to tell, and I really like the story. It's definitely a beachy fragrance, definitely a summer fragrance, 100%. But you know, first of all, we opened and we're met with this kind of quite natural lime with this kind of alcoholic spearmint and sugar vibe. The spearmint actually fades quite quick. I would say it's already kind of dropped almost to non-existence, and instead that sugar is coming in and overtaking. So instead, like the mint falls back, sugar comes in, and that sticks around for, I would say, about 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then it's going to start shifting and it's going to start changing, and it moves into its almost like some kind of second phase. I think there's got 3 phases, this fragrance, and the second phase of it is where things get funky, and it's where I think this fragrance is going to kind of divide opinions, because you get a lot of people don't like this middle phase and they don't like it at all, whereas me personally, I think it lives and dies on it, and I absolutely love it. So it gets salty, basically. It drops that kind of sugariness and it gets quite salty, and some people say it smells like sweat, and I can see that, and I totally can see that. What it is it's the lime, and you get this subtle hint of musk, but it's super subtle, like really, really subtle. But with those 3, with the lime, the musk, and the salt, it starts getting a little bit like sweat, I guess. But for me, it's not sweat like old stale sweat that you smell on a t-shirt, that, you know, or something like that. It's not gross. It smells like fresh sweat, I guess, in a way, and that might still sound gross. So to kind of change our vocabulary and kind of frame it in a way that doesn't instantly have kind of negative connotations, it smells like humans on a hot day, you know, and it gets this kind of beachy vibe, obviously, with because the florals start creeping out, and for those florals, okay, so the gardenia in this, frangipani or whatever it's called, or tiara flower in this one, you'll recognise it they use it all the time in suntan lotions. So it's kind of become the kind of exotic beachy flower that you would use in kind of fragrance, because it has connotations of beaches and stuff, because it's used so often in suntan lotions. So, and it comes from Tahiti, which I guess was the original usage, but you don't need to know that it smells like beaches and sun, because it smells like a bit suntan lotiony. And this fragrance does have that vibe, definitely has at this point like a suntan lotion vibe. Gets some kind of coconut starts coming out in there, a little bit of that kind of tiara flower, or tiare flower, and it starts feeling a little bit suntan lotiony, but that's all mixed with the kind of lime and the kind of sweat vibe. Like I say, like sweat instantly gives you negative connotations, but this shouldn't. It's not stale sweat. It's not gross. It smells like humanity. It smells, not humanity, but humans. It smells like people on a beach on a hot day. You know, I think if you get upset by this fragrance, or you feel like, not upset, but you know, if you find it gross in any way, or I would say that you're being a little bit precious, to be honest, like, because it really is. It just smells like people, you know. It smells like what we smell like. It smells like if you're on a beach on a summer's day and you smell your skin, that's what you smell like, you know, like it or hate it, you smell a bit like that. You smell a bit sweaty, a little bit hot, a little bit kind of salty from the sea. You can smell that kind of suntan lotion kind of blended in there. Things are a little bit milky from the kind of creamy suntan in this, that you got that milkiness coming from the coconut. And then of course, like, that's what we smell like. You got that like touch of muskiness that's just, you know, a little gentle touch of animalic muskiness. And that's what we smell like, you know, as humans. And I think it's gorgeous, and I really like it in this fragrance. And I think it's it transitions to that phase, and I can get the narrative now. I feel like, okay, so after we've had that opening, you know, of like kind of the alcoholic kind of or the fresh drink, now we're on the beach in the evening, and I feel like this actually transitions to an interesting section, because I feel like this perfume is perfect for day wear because it's fresh and it's light and it's got limes and things. And if you don't want to read too much into it, you can leave it at that and feel like it's just a fresh, nice fragrance. But I also feel like with this kind of gentle, very gentle animalic kind of muskiness and sweatiness, with the salt and stuff, it actually does take on like a touch of a darker edge to it. But it's touch, and in the evenings I feel like it actually gets kind of raunchy, like, and that comes with the flowers in a second more so. But you know, I feel like it's got that kind of quite seductive vibe to it. You know, it feels to me like I'm on a beach in the late afternoon, maybe, you know, in the high heat of summer, just relaxing or partying or whatever you want to kind of envisage. But it definitely has this kind of like evening on a beach vibe, and it does have a kind of excitement and sort of dark kind of raunchiness to it. And that's helped along by the next stage, which is when the kind of florals come out, and then you get the lime drops back a little bit, and I wish the lime stuck around more, but it doesn't, unfortunately. The lime kind of, it's still there because I was sort of moving from the opening to the dry down. The lime is still there, but it sits right back, and instead it's kind of taken over by the kind of frangipani or tiare flower, the florals basically, and the muskiness and the salt kind of takes over. And at that point, it feels kind of like, you know, a bit musky, a bit animalic, a bit dark, a bit kind of, you know, like the party's kind of gone on, you know, and we're kind of late into the night now, still on the beach, but it's great. In the daytime, you can still wear this because it still feels like a beachy kind of scent. But if you kind of want to read into the kind of, like I say, like the notes that you're getting and the story that it's telling, it gets a little bit nighttime-y, and I feel like it's really versatile in that way. Like, it's not versatile in terms of, like, it's basically a summer frag, but it's versatile in terms of if you want to wear it in the day or the night. I think it really works both ways. I think you can really see it as like a fresh, kind of summery, beachy thing, and also kind of like a seductive kind of summer evening thing. But yeah, to get back to what it actually smells like, that kind of middle and the heart really starts smelling like as if you've been on the beach for all day long, and you've got home and you've got that kind of salt on your skin, faint suntan lotion kind of vibe that's kind of lingering, and it just feels relaxed and kind of sexy with those florals and those musks and that real hint of animalic kind of underneath there, and that kind of salty, sweaty skin vibe to it. Yeah, like I feel like it's got like something sexy about it, and something kind of slightly more sultry going on. It feels like worn bikinis or worn beach wear, you know, like it feels like, not that I make a habit of going around sniffing warm bikinis, but you know what I'm saying, right? It's that muskiness, that animalic side of it, that it feels like worn clothes, and kind of closeness of people, I guess, and that I feel like really makes this perfume like a little bit, so this is all quite subtle. It's not like a super sexy, flirty, raunchy perfume. this is all just, and what I really like about it is it's all just underneath this, like bubbling underneath this actual, the surface of the perfume, which is actually kind of crowd pleasing, lime, salty beach vibe. It's almost like, you know, on the surface it's got this kind of happy-go-lucky, like, yeah, Batucada, you know, like, yeah, it's all just limes and let's have fun and party, but just bubbling away under the surface it's got all that stuff that I described about the kind of musky animalic and the kind of sexy sort of closeness of other humans, and that, you know, I really like that, and I feel like that's kind of the final stage, and it lasts for quite a while. Unfortunately, it then sort of progresses to its kind of final form, which is kind of rubbish, and I feel like it's by far the weakest part, and it's unfortunately the longest lasting part. It's like the kind of late dry down, and what you get is this very soft lime, very soft kind of coconut water, little bit of the florals, and a tiny bit of woods that are coming from just this very, very faint, and it's definitely in here, there's definitely like a faint patchouli and vetiver, but I mean they're almost non-existent. They're just there to kind of, like, I think, build it all up and keep it a bit robust. They've probably been there the whole time, but you don't really get them until the very late dry down, and but I mean, to call them kind of, I wouldn't say, you know, they're not in the note listing, and I'm not surprised because they don't really play any starring role. You have to really bury your nose and give it a sniff, and you can catch them, but I feel like they probably play more of a role to the bigger picture just by kind of holding it all up. But, you know, if you want to kind of read into that story of it, opening with like a big party and then like a kind of relaxed, beachy nighttime hanging out, you know, the ending is kind of subdued, and it kind of works, you know, after that kind of long night that you like day, and transition of like the day into the night of the perfume, and then, you know, you've got that subdued bit where you go home and crash out, I guess, and that's kind of where it finishes. I really love this perfume. I think it's really great. I think it's complex, and I think it's really interesting. I think it's really just gently different, but it's definitely like easy to wear in the daytime and be like, yeah, hey, it's just fun and summer and sunshine and beach, you know. It's really the best of both worlds. I personally find summer fragrances quite dull most of the time. By far my most hated season in terms of perfumery. You know, I'm much more into the kind of spices and woods and interesting kind of rich deepness of the kind of autumn and winter fragrances, but for me this is a summer fragrance that I really can enjoy. I mean, there are others, but this is just one particular that really kind of goes for a type of fragrance which is generally, to my nose, a little bit boring, and almost like we're just wearing it because we want to wear a fragrance, but it's summer, so, you know, you want to keep things really light. I mean, this really is a heat of summer fragrance, right? And in those times you just want to wear something light and easy, and I feel like this works for that. You know, it is a really light, easy fragrance, and in those cases they tend to be a little boring, but Batucada is not at all. It's really interesting, really fun to wear, and really interesting story to tell. And I just think it's a cracking fragrance. So who do I think it's for? I think it's bang androgynous, straight down the line, unisex. There's absolutely nothing in it like that leans it masculine or feminine. Of course, you've got those kind of florals that tend, you know, like the tiare flower, the gardenia, frangipani, whatever you want to call it, that's going to kind of lean it touch feminine. But the thing is, it has such associations with suntan lotion and things like that it's really a floral that it's androgynous as all hell. It's, say, bang on unisex down the middle. In terms of versatility, I think this is really summer fragrance. You probably could wear it in other seasons. I don't, you know, I think it could cut it and stuff, but I don't really know why you would want to. I feel like if you wore this in the middle of the winter, it would be akin to walking into a funeral and like breaking out into a samba. Like it would be slightly strange. It just wouldn't work. This is definitely like 100% beach, you know, 100% summer. You wouldn't, you know, no. So it's really like a summer fragrance, which is a shame, because obviously I would love to get more out of this, but it's more or less nailed on a summer fragrance. Otherwise, like to say, do I recommend it? Would I get a new one if this ran out? Absolutely. Do I recommend it? Absolutely. I think everyone should give it a go. I think it's a cracking fragrance. It is slightly more expensive. So I did this kind of as like 2 limes that I like, and we had Eau de Gaga, which is £7. This is about 100, I think. Lots and Parfumeurs. But if you go for the old bottle, because they've changed their bottles now, so if you go for the older bottles, you can pick these up a lot cheaper. And I got this at a fraction of the price. I think I think this cost me about £40. So, you know, that's less than half price if you go for an old kind of discontinued bottle style. So yeah, that's Batucada, and I just think it's an absolute banger. I love everything about it. I love the story it's got to tell, and I love the actual scent of it. I think it smells cracking. I think, you know, maybe I got a bit carried away talking about the story, but actually just to quickly sort of reiterate what it actually smells like, it's gorgeous. Performance wise, it's not as good as Eau de Gaga, but the actual dry down does last, but it's very much a skin scent. You get about 3 or 4 hours of kind of real kind of projection, and then it dives right down to a skin scent. I'd wish it was a bit more than that, but it's what it is. I think it's a really gorgeous scent. You know, and for the summer, the high heat and things like that, perhaps you don't want anything more than that anyway. You know, you want things to wear quite close and be quite a skin scent anyway. So yeah, that's kind of it for that one. Batucada, cracking fragrance, recommend it to all. Thanks very much for watching. Like, subscribe if you want to. Thanks very much. Cheers.